Thank you so much for being our guest today. It is very important during this period to talking about the peaceful negotiations and the rest that actually EUMM is doing for our country and already for 15 years. Let's start our conversation with the topic of Ukraine and war in Ukraine and impact of the security situation in Georgia. What is the EUMM's observation?
Thank you for inviting me. It's a great pleasure to be here. And as you said, EU monitoring mission Georgia is approaching its 14th year's anniversary. And definitely the situation that we experience right now is to a large extent determined by the ongoing Russian aggression against Ukraine, started on the 24th of February this year. And it goes without saying that this unprovoked aggression changed significantly, dramatically, the security environment in which we operate. Maybe not directly here in Georgia, but in the wider regional context, we see significant implications of this war in Ukraine. Having said that, I would like to say that we do not see significant changes in the security situation on the ground, where we monitor the situation along administrative boundary lines with South Ossetia and Abkhazia. After, let's say, initial couple of weeks where we observed, let's say, some level of higher readiness, especially across administrative boundary line of different security actors. Right now the situation remains relatively stable, although it requires particular and non-stop attention to be able, from us especially, to be able to detect all possible indications of the potential deterioration of the situation. And it also requires special responsibility from all sides in order to avoid incidents or uncontrolled development of the situation. And from this perspective, our constant visible presence at the administrative boundary line, both lines plays special role in contributing to the stability on the ground, but also in providing timely and accurate information about this situation.
We will talk later a bit more about your mission and what actually you are doing on the ground, but it will be very interesting to hear from you. After 40 years, what kind of tendencies do you see with the negotiations with the two breakaway republics?
After 14 years, we see definitely that the situation is dynamic. It is developing not necessarily in the direction that was initially envisaged when our mission was launched in September 2008, immediately in the aftermath of the Russian-Georgian war, and in order to monitor the implementation of the ceasefire agreement that ended this war, brokered and negotiated by the European Union also, so-called six-point agreement. And today we can say very clearly, and this is what we confirm also publicly, that Russia is unfortunately not in compliance with this six-point agreement, because they failed to withdraw the armed forces from the territories of South Ossetia and Abkhazia, despite the commitment clearly made in this six-point agreement. We also see continuous, let's say, separation and isolation of those two regions from the rest of Georgia. And this trend, unfortunately, even accelerated during the COVID pandemic, mainly due to the imposed restrictions on the freedom of movement across ABL, but also due to the deliberate attempts to kind of reinforce the infrastructure at the ABL, something that we call borderization. Yes, I know it's not a very nice term, but it actually describes what is going on there. So the constant incremental construction of different elements like ditches, like ground lines, barbed wire, fences, watchtowers, sensors, in order on one hand to fully control, yes, the movement across ABL, on the other hand also to intimidate local population in order to prevent them from even attempts of crossing this ABL. Unfortunately, it's difficult to talk about full normalization, yes, of the situation, despite the efforts of the international community. So there is certain level of stability, again, something that I already mentioned, but it is ensured also due to this constant presence, monitoring presence of our mission, and this stability is also ensured because of the, let's say, lack of interactions, yes, that we see across ABL, or very limited people-to-people contacts. We also unfortunately see the constant high number of detentions, something that is well known for the public and described by the Georgian media. Right now we have 8 pending detention cases in the South Ossetian theater and 1 case in the Abkhaz theater. And we try very hard together with my co-facilitator of the Ergneti Incident Prevention and Response Mechanism to address those issues, to advocate for the early release of those detainees and the positive outcome of those cases.
You have partially already provided response to my next question, but I still would like to ask you just to explain to our viewers what exactly, how do you contribute to the stability and safety of the Georgia and breakaway republics? And probably we have to highlight that you and EUMM has been denied
access to the physical access to the regions of South Ossetia and Abkhazia, and this is despite our original mandate that covers entire territory of Georgia within its internationally recognized borders. So unfortunately we are not able to physically monitor the situation there. We try to do it using different means, monitoring open sources, for example, but this is not an optimal situation, definitely. How we try to contribute to the stability and security in Georgia and wider region? By different means, yes, by our constant monitoring presence, that is, let's be frank, also having some deterrent effect. So security actors on the other side of the ABL, when they see us being present there, so they prefer to refrain, for example, from borderization activities, or they assume less, let's say, maybe visible presence. We also provide decision makers in Brussels, in EU member states, but also international community in the format of Geneva International Discussions with objective, fact-based informations and assessment of the security situation on the ground. So this is, I think, very helpful in order to formulate this policy vis-à-vis Georgia, vis-à-vis South Caucasus, vis-à-vis Russia as well. We also are strongly engaged in the confidence building activities. I already mentioned this incident prevention and response mechanism. This year we already had 4 such meetings in Ergneti, where both representatives of the Georgian government, representatives of the Russian Federation, but also representatives of the Țhinvali-based de facto authorities can discuss together very pending practical issues related to the security and living conditions of the conflict-affected communities. Altogether, already 107 such meetings took place. We also operate what is called hotline, which is the main channel of communication between Tbilisi on one side, Sukhumi and Țhinvali on the other side. And just to illustrate you the how intensive this is used, that we have roughly 200-300 activations per month of this hotline. So it's we act like a phone operator, but this is very much appreciated by all actors, all parties participating in this mechanism. There is also small confidence building facility that we operate. We can finance small grants, well targeted, that have this cross-ABL confidence building component, and they are mainly implemented by the civil society actors on the ground. So this is our, I think, practical contribution. But please be aware also that the presence of this mission here already for 14 years enjoys great support of all EU member states. And this is manifested by the number of countries represented in our mission. We have colleagues coming from 26 out of 27 EU member states, and obviously also our Georgian colleagues who work in our mission. I think this is also clear commitment and long-term commitment on the side of the European Union for the security and stability here in Georgia and in wider regions. So this is one of the 3 biggest civilian missions of the common security and defense policy of the European Union.
Thank you so much for the detailed response. It was really very interesting. And the last question for today, I hope we're going to have a chance to continue our interview next time, but for today I would like to ask you regarding the case of Irakli Bebua. Is EUMM somehow involved into the negotiations, and are there any movement?
We provide the communication, the possibilities to communicate between Sukhumi and Tbilisi authorities on this particular case, mainly by using the hotline that we operate. We keep also raising this issue in our contacts that we have with relevant stakeholders, mainly on the margins of Geneva International discussions. We are monitoring the situation also using those means that are available to us. Unfortunately, this is one of those long-lasting cases that is very difficult to resolve because of certain political elements or aspects attached to this on the side of de facto authorities in Abkhazia. But we still try to do our best in order to make some progress and achieve the positive resolution of this issue. Unfortunately, the Gali, some other issues that we face in the Abkhaz theater, they illustrate very well the necessity to restart Gali IPRM on a regular basis as the main format of dialogue across ABL in order to address such practical issues.
Do you have any positive expectations?
We keep discussing this together with other actors like United Nations, OEC, but this seems to be very complicated topic that is also somehow affected by the general geopolitical context. But we don't give up the hope, and we'll try to do our best.
Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
the interview, for your contribution to the safety and stability in our country.
And thank you, and we are always available to provide your audience with detailed information, because as I said, we focus our activities in the field, on the ground. So for us it's very important, extremely important, to reach out to the local audience beyond Tbilisi. So I'm very happy that I was able to give you this interview, and I hope we'll continue our cooperation in the future.